This is the flag of Norway, but historically it was associated with another flag. So in this video, I would like to look at how did the Norwegian flag change from the one on the left to the one on the right? What is their origin, and what is the symbolism behind them? Of course, Norway is one of the Scandinavian countries, and throughout its history, various flags have been used to portray it. Each design reflects a different chapter in the nation's story, shaped by unions, traditions, and the quest for identity. So, for example, during the Battle of Nesjar in 1616, the Norwegian king Olav Haraldsson is said to have carried a banner marked with a serpent. Throughout much of the Viking Age, a variety of symbols appeared on banners, often featuring creatures such as serpents or dragons, wolves, and ravens. Ravens, in particular, seem to have been especially important, as they were linked to the god Odin, who was closely associated with the nobility. Wolves and dragons also appear frequently in Germanic mythology, and were likely favoured symbols as well. Starting from around 1136, during the reign of King Inge Haraldsson, we start to see more heraldic imagery emerging, with animals like lions and eagles appearing on liveries and coats of arms. Because in 1280, during the reign of Eirik II, we know that he was using the lion with an axe in its hands and a crown on its head on a red background as his symbol. But the first time we actually see this is in 1318, on the seal of the noblewoman Ingeborg Håkonsdotter, who, as you can see, has the two lions at the very top holding the axe. Now, in 1523, the Kalmar Union that had been Denmark, Norway and Sweden fell apart when Sweden pulled out. This left Norway as the junior partner in a relationship with the much more powerful Denmark to the south. And in 1748, the Danes demanded that the trade flag of Norwegian ships be only the Dannebrog, or the Norwegian flag with the red and white Nordic cross. However, in 1814, when Denmark backed the wrong side in the Napoleonic Wars, Norway briefly became an independent country and pulled out of the Union. They decided to have as their flag a design very similar to that of the Danes, adding only a lion, again with a kind of halberd and a crown on its head in the corner. This brought in influences from both the old union with Denmark and the former medieval Norwegian flag. Unfortunately for the Norwegians, their independence wasn't to last, as Sweden soon invaded, captured Norway, and made it part of the Swedish Empire. However, the Swedes were relatively lenient in their terms and allowed the Norwegians to have a flag to represent their country within the empire. In 1821, one of the designs for the Norwegian flag was created. This is, of course, the flag we now know and love. There was quite a lot to consider when making it, and the man who designed it spoke in Danish, which was the language of the nobility in Norway at the time. So that's the main influence behind the Norwegian flag, though there were still important decisions to be made about the colours. There was a big debate. Should red dominate, reflecting Norway's long history with Denmark, or should blue take the lead, representing its union with Sweden? In the end, they opted for a bit of both, also keeping in mind that the Swedish flag at the time was a darker blue, later changed to the lighter shade we know today. So when you understand this, you can clearly see where the influence behind the Norwegian flag comes from. For a long time, the Norwegian flag was only allowed on ships within Norwegian waters. If they sailed further afield, they had to fly the Swedish flag because of various regulations and fees. They couldn't afford to use the Norwegian flag for protection or shipping purposes. And of course, in 1818, the Swedes, who ruled over Norway at the time, decided to implement a modified Swedish flag in Norway, adding a canton in the corner. This signified that the ship was part of the Swedish Union, but specifically coming from Norway. Now, in 1844, they revamped the design to this version. The main flag was, of course, the Norwegian flag that had been chosen, but the canton showed a mixed flag with Sweden to indicate the union. In Sweden, a similar idea was used. The Swedish flag, with its darker blue, included a canton to show the connection with Norway. This canton was sometimes even used in diplomacy to represent the partnership of Sweden and Norway abroad. As you can see, it's quite an interesting design, and it even had a nickname, Sildasalaten, meaning herring salad. This was a common breakfast dish in many Scandinavian countries, and the flag earned the name because, like the dish, it looks a bit messy on the plate. For a long time, this was the flag situation in Scandinavia. The clean, simple Danish flag and the Union flag of Norway and Sweden with its various iterations. However, by the end of the 19th century, there was growing pressure in Norway to leave the Union with Sweden. The Union had become increasingly unpopular, and people began calling for the rena flagga, the pure flag, which was simply the Norwegian flag without a canton in the corner. And in 1898, as Sweden's grip on Norway weakened, the Norwegian Parliament voted to adopt the rena flagga. Despite attempts by the Swedish king to veto the change, the Parliament pushed it through, and in 1899 this new, simplified flag was officially enforced. And of course, this flag would later be enforced in 1905, when Norway became completely independent, following a referendum that ended the union with Sweden. Since then, the same Norwegian flag has flown over the country's cities, towns, and ships. And that, essentially, is the history of the Norwegian flag. I hope you found it interesting. Thank you all so much for watching. A huge thank you to my subscribers, who are incredibly patient and generous with their support. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more. I hope to see you all again very soon.